It's interesting. I think that JJ is probably most inclined to lead off with Henselt as he is in the red coin position. However, Henselt is least equipped to handle the Erica's Queen. When you're on the blue coin, you might want to be leading off with Bran here, so it's possible we see Henselt versus Bran, but if Game King wants the best chance to win with Erica's Queen, he may actually want to lead off with Erica's Queen in the blue coin position to go up against Henselt, where his odds are greatest. However, JJ might be anticipating that. We might see him queue in Ethna first. We're going to get a chance to see what they picked here.
Ooh.
It is going to be Henselt on the red coin, but he
is going
Game
with the
King
beater.
is just going to be leading off here with Nilfgaard instead. So didn't opt to go in with Erica's Queen right away. Best chance to win, arguably, would be to lead off with Erica's Queen and try to get that win right away. But it looks like he's going to take his chance with Nilfgaard. It's going to be Nilfgaard versus Henselt to start things off here. Semifinals, Gwent Open number 3. Let's go.
Let's do this. It is the Empire versus the Filthy Nordlings. As we see a decent opening hand there for JJ, as Gaming is still deciding his mulligans. You want to get rid of the engines here, but he opts to get rid of the Nausicaa Brigade instead, which is a unit that you want to preserve for the late game as well, because it synergizes really well with the likes of Iris and Joaquin, and it's not something that you want to win round 1 with. 3 engine components is actually not bad, especially because you do have double emissary, as we do see a Cantarella lead. What this spy does is simply revert the coin flip in Game King's favor at the expense of 13 points, which he can potentially overcome with Emir. The thing here is, or in this case, Rainforn. This is a very interesting Nilfgaard spy list because it is running Kahir, and we also saw Azakov opted to go with this instead of the more, common choice in Geralt Igni, as what this spy does is it basically makes it so that JG cannot put him in a spot in which the tempo play generated by Henselt, which is one of the most powerful in the game, forces him out of that. And it also prevents the Dun banner to come out as easily because the synergy between the spy and the Dun banner is extremely strong, and Cantarella kind of prevents that. So we see just the card advantage Civil Spies being played in the first turn, and from here onwards, it's as if the game started all over again.
Exactly. Both players exercising their espionage abilities here as the spy games continue. We did see a lot of that, of course, in the quarterfinals, and you'll see a lot of that in Gwent in general. Card advantage is very, very important, especially when you're trying to set up that last turn. You're trying to set up, a favorable villain Trettenmirth, of course, as Super JJ is a big fan of running that in Henselt, and Henselt generally is a fan of villain Trettenmirth as well. So the game is kind of reset here at 0. Game King will actually now have to make a play here on his side of the board, and it's going to likely be an engine piece. Either it's going to be the Imperial Brigade, which grows over time. It's a setup piece. Nilfgaard Spies has been probably one of the most dominant engine-based decks that's out there, especially in a meta right now that's dominated by Scoia'tael. Very aggressive kind of tempo power decks. Nilfgaard Spies is still kind of existing on that landscape as a really competent and strong engine deck.
Exactly. Nilfgaard Spies does tend to have a little bit of a slow start because these engines do have very low base power compared to other bronze cards in the game. But once it gets rolling and you get, I think up to the point where you have like 3 engines is where it starts to get really nasty because the synergy really starts to flow and you start to get a lot of power from every single emissary and spy you play. And Vicar of Medic enables you to reutilize those emissaries and not only thin through your deck, but quite simply just drop your entire engine, which are the Imperial Brigades and the Imperial Enforcers. And just it leads to massive swings. As we see a muzzle being applied there onto the Imperial Brigade. This is very good muzzle, actually. It gets the maximum value mathematically, as it's a 16-point swing, since it does steal 8 points from the opponent and applies it to your own side, and it also denies one of the engine components for Game King. Now, I do gotta go back on what I said. Like, it's not exactly starting for 0 because the difference in this scenario, in which both players have started with their spies, is that Cantarella will be buffing every single component, the Imperial Enforcers or the Imperial Brigade, and that does give you a slight advantage in that sense. But here comes down the second Imperial Brigade, which will be buffed to 10 because muzzle does convert the unit it charms to a spy.
It's interesting. It works in Game King's favor. Obviously, it's not good that he had one of his engine pieces taken, but it does still work a little bit in his favor. There's Ronvid coming out here from Alzur's Double Cross. Ronvid being that persistent crewman that Henselt is able to utilize over the course of all 3 rounds. Ideally. Not in every matchup, but in this matchup here, it's likely to be really good. As Alzur's Double Cross takes that highest strength unit, Ronvid coming in at 11 is usually the pull from Alzur's Double Cross. taking that little bit of engine piece away, Game King at least had another one in his hand, and now he's probably able to start the engine here, get the emissary, get more emissaries out. You want to fill the board with spies so your enforcers are able to machine gun down. There's the enforcer. It's going to get 4 shots off minimum, and it's just going to get more shots off as things continue on here. Super JJ's strategy from here on is probably going to be using Winch and try to get as many machines out as possible, and use Nenica later on to shuffle those back into the deck, and use Hensel to make it rain machines later on. JJ didn't really have the opportunity to do that yesterday. Adzikov did, however, have an insane 5 battering ram Hensel play in the quarterfinals. JJ does have that option, an opportunity, although that's not necessarily the win condition he always leans on for this list.
We see the reinforced ballista dropping down next to Ronvid, getting the boost from the crewman tag and hitting the Imperial Enforcers twice, as Game King is 8 points behind. It is looking pretty decent for Game King, as he still has a Mir, which is going to most likely target the Vikavaro medic, and we're going to see another emissary being dropped down here right next to the crewman, because it does disrupt that, as the crewman tag does require the machine to be right next to it. So if JJ was to drop the Siege Master, he will not, that reinforced ballista will not get the boost from Ronvid. So very solid positioning. I like the targeting there with the Imperial Enforcer, not going for the emissaries as of yet. Even though, no, never, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing in the graveyard for the Vikavar medic
that's
yet.
Scorch.
Oh, the Scorch looks...
Yeah, he played into a Scorch. Oh,
yeah, he sure did.
Like, I'm not, I was kind of like giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know why he didn't bop the spy with the first enforcer procs there, as you need to not, oh my lord.
You got to take this opportunity, right? You're not going to see a better Scorch than this. 32 points, up in flames. These guys are going down. That's a devastating play there. It's going to be really hard for Game King to fight through this round at this point and catch up.
That's game winning. That's crazy.
It's really huge. Yeah, Game King had the opportunity to stagger that. He could have staggered it. It's true.
Oh, that's definitely a misplay right there by Rafa. Oh wow, that was a huge Scorch. That was a 32-point Scorch, but it's even more than that because it stopped those brigades from growing. Oh my God, he made another huge misplay.
Oh, and he's got nothing to grab from the Vikavar medic.
Rafael seems a little bit out of it.
Game King just a little. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. He checked it. He checked it twice too before that play on top of it too. Not pleased with his performance. His body language says it all.
Oh God, no! Not like this.
Not like this.
Not like this. I think what happened here. I think what happened is he had a bit of a lapses in judgment there. He thought he killed the emissary in the first proc. It must have like escaped his mind. This happens. Like, this is a lot of pressure these players go through, and you're on the stage. Like it's easy to, it's easy to call out mistakes when you're watching as a third person. But these kind of things happen, and I think that's exactly what occurred here. He forgot to basically eliminate the emissary, and I don't know why he's not killing off the emissaries.
I mean, he was able to take it. He's gone 2 cards down to take this round. I mean, he had to commit. He's not pleased with himself here. I think this statement has never been more true. It happens to the best of us.
It happens, yeah.
And this is one of the best players that it just happened to, guys. It is tough. It's tough. Game King is in an unenviable position right now. He is down a significant amount of cards. It is almost out of reach. He is going to do his best here. The spy's already been played. Any way he can get back into this game here is just going to be likely going to be a pass right now to at least get one left.
He has to push.
He has to push for the 2-0.
He has to push really hard and put him in a position in which he can disrupt his late game. Like if he open passes here, it's going to be very difficult because he has to go. He's going to have to go like going 1 card down against Henselt, especially machines where they can stagger their they can really snowball with their crewmen and their machines, and he can set up a very nasty Henselt. He has a lot of room to do so as well. I think you kind of have to push here, but what's important here is that Game King does not. He cannot let this get to him. He cannot. It's like Adzikov yesterday. We saw him make a slight misplay there with the golem placement and missing out on 4 extra points from the commander's horn, and thus losing the match. But he stayed positive and he kept on playing. I think Game King has to keep his composure. Acknowledge he's made a mistake. It's fine. It happens, as you said, to the best of us. Game King is one of the best competitors in Gwent, and competitive card games in general, and he just has to keep on.
Just a bit of a mental slip there.
Yeah.
I mean, what else can you really say
Exactly.
about it? I mean, Game King does have it is a best of 5, and this game isn't over yet, but you know, it's a really tough spot.
I actually think the thing is, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Like, do you push here, or do you pass and take that? Because he had another chance there to like pass, and having played Azir, which is his carryover play, and having his opponent not be able to catch up to him was probably a decent chance. But I like that he's setting up. I think at this point you just got to go in and try to push him as hard as possible and see. I'm not entirely sure up to which point he wants to push. But he does have a very strong looking hand. That could here represent another Emir into the Vicar of Aromatic, so he can cycle those emissaries. But if he's starting to do this now, it leads me to believe that he's just going all in this round. He's going for 2-0.
It's like his only chance, really, like to push as much as possible. But I mean, you push JJ down. The thing about JJ here is, it's not just that he has cards on Game King. He has so many tools at his disposal that he doesn't necessarily, and like he has a lot of, like Hensel probably is fine to hold on to. Nanika is going to be able to get some work done. We haven't even seen what the Winch is able to provide. As long as the crewmen are on board here for the Siege Masters, although Game King will be disrupting the crewman synergy by placing the emissaries in between the crewmen and the machines. So it's a little bit harder for like the Ballista to maybe like instantly gun down an Enforcer, which is at least a position that JJ could have been in here. But you know, Game King is just going to try. He's kind of doing his normal Nilfgaard things as if he is not down the cards that he is. But unfortunately, he is down the cards that he is.
He did avoid playing into Dumb Banner. That is what was worrying me here. As if for those of you who do not know, the Dumb Banner is a 4-strength unit that auto summons itself from the deck if your opponent has a 21-point strength lead or higher. So it's something that you have to take into consideration. Those units, those 3 copies of that unit are sitting in JJ's deck. So you always have to ensure that any sort of like high tempo play that you go for, you cannot overdo it, because it will you're gonna give your opponent 12 points for free, and it's also gonna thin his deck, because one of the chances is to like, okay, yeah, he's definitely going all in. He's definitely going all in.
He's definitely going all in right there. There's Iris is the last disloyal unit.
I don't recall.
Game King, a huge fan of Iris, believes in Iris, puts Iris in a lot of his
too.
decks, definitely, and definitely in Nilfgaard. Just always has defended it, and he will be able to take it out, guaranteed. But it's interesting, he's trying to avoid the Den Banner, but he will have to get a lead, a sizable lead, to even have a chance here, which JJ is protected against automatically from the Den Banner, and of course the massive amount of cards he has on his opponent.
This is going to be rough, definitely, as whenever he procs Iris, he will not be able to avoid the fact that he's going to get that 25-point burst, which means that he's going to overcome that 21 strength.
It's
point.
unavoidable.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of unavoidable. If he wants to use that Iris, he has to do this. He was also like setting up that Iris for the Imperial Enforcer, but he's facing machines, and he knows that JJ's running Reinforced Ballista, so he kind of gave him that Enforcer kill, and thus lost value on that last proc, because he's going to have to resort to the likes of Nausicaa Brigade here, unless he pulls one last Enforcer with that Vicar of Aromatic onto an Emissary, or playing Joaquim into it as well. Like, yeah, he's got the Dumb Banner is coming out here. Like, there's no, if you play Joaquim, first of all, you're going for the 2-0, and second of all, you're that's not the best target either, because that's a very, very strong unit. But he has utilized Scorch already, and we do not see Viltrumet in his hand. But we can definitely acknowledge that Game King is going for the 2-0, but at the same time, there's no way the Dumb Banner is not coming out.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem really mathematically realistic to say that Game King has a chance to push for the 2-0 here, but I mean, ultimately, I think the issue here is that Game King is just kind of getting through this game. I mean, he recognized the misplay. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his body language that he was, of course, you can see it in the numbers as well. 4 and 2 being the card difference right now in a round that Game King is just trying to push as much as possible here. Iris is still on the board. Nausicaa Brigade is still available. It is the only Nausicaa Brigade that Game King has, and this is like one of its best uses, and he's going to save that for last. So
he also pulled a battering ram through that winch, and has no battering rams in his graveyard, and he's running 3 in this deck. So he has on top of this, like, JJ has a ridiculous Hensult, and he has to kill that battering ram 100%. He has to go for it. And this is going to be a tremendous swing for Game King, but at the same time, 12 free points are going to come out for JJ. Can we get some aye sirs in the chat? Because there we go.
We're making up for the IISers, as I'm sure they're going to patch that back in, of course, because we all love hearing it, right? It's one of our favorite cards in the game, the Dun Banner. Alert to arms, indeed. So there is that protection we were talking about. Now the lead looks sizable right now, but JJ does have the ability to really push here, and he does have he has the cards to play these things liberally on top of this. So. The Nausicaa Brigade does represent just a last little push if Game King wants to use his last card, just to make just to increase his buffer of points a little bit more, force JJ into playing the big cards like Shawnee, which is coming down.
He has to play Shawnee now.
He can't afford it, and he's going to get the battering ram out. So Henselt will be the play that'll be able to take over the points, as he'll get 3 battering rams out of the deal.
Mm-hmm. Like he's forced to play Shiny there because if Game King were to pass here and he would play something like a Siege Master or even Nenekate, he wouldn't have a proper Hensel target. So he's forced to play Shiny here. If Game King had something like Vilgefortz, he could even go for an offensive Vilgefortz here, like we saw Hannah-chan do yesterday, and deny the Hensel again. But then again, he would probably draw the other battering ram at that point. So no matter what happens here, and no matter what he had in his hand, Game King is in a very, very tough spot. And we're definitely, we could see a Nausicaa Brigade onto one of the reinforced ballistas for a 16-point swing. And he may just go for that because Henselt onto that battering ram is definitely going to bring him back into it. So we are going to see the last card being played here by Game King. And Henselt is coming in. Now, I don't think Henselt could pull off 40 points, but I don't want people to quote me on that because I've seen very nutty stuff with this guy. But he doesn't have crewmans on the board. It's the thing.
Yeah,
he has Henselt,
he's got the crewman. He's got a 3 to hit. He's going to be able to get full value here as well, because now Emir's at 4, and then he'll be able to hit a Seer as well, just to make sure that he has one more target, or he's just going to make it on the Vikavara medic here.
He's gonna win. He's gonna go into round. He's gonna go into round 3 with 2 cards over Game King. Actually,
no, he will have to play one more card.
Well, he did get that. He did manage to get that last card. The problem is, I believe Game pretty much played all his win conditions.
Yeah, it's tough.
Hakim and Iris are gone. He has absolutely nothing. Yeah, we see his face. Honestly, he lost that game with that
40-point Henselt, though. 40-point Henselt. Yeah, not too shabby. He needed 41. 40 was good enough, and that extra card.
With no crewman.
With no crewman. With Henselt taking care of it. If he had anything on the board there, Infiltrator's not going to get the job done. He's going to have to mulligan that.
Well, if you look at his deck, what else is
what can you do? I mean, he's got, we didn't see Vilgefortz, I suppose, but I mean, this is, with Villain Prettenworth, there's Vilgefortz, but there's not going to be, well, there will be an offensive target for it. Is he forced to play Vilgefortz, the effect?
Yes.
He'll have to give JJ another card here?
Yeah. When you have no target to burn on your side of the board, you have to utilize Vilgefortz offensive effect. You have to target the opposing unit and give your opponent a bronze card, which it happens to be Win, so it wasn't even one of the Dun Banner cavalries. And
Dreadbird is going to be all you need, though.
Yeah, without the scorching effect needed, JJ takes the first game, as Game King does have a very significant misplay. Hopefully he can bounce back from this, though. But it is looking rough for him because the worst part of this matchup has not yet occurred, and we're talking about that Arrakis Queen targeting by JJ. So very good start for Jan here, as Rafael has to really focus and try to, not let this get to him.
Yeah. A loss is a loss, of course. We saw Adzakov made a misplay that cost him a game in quarterfinals. He just zoned through it, ended up 3-1ing Hannah-chan. And Game King is going to have to just take that, okay, I lost that game. There's lots of games left to play. He's going to have to do his best here, as JJ really coasted into that victory there, as Game King was his worst enemy, his own worst enemy. But we're going to move on to game 2. Game King is just going to have to get things sorted out here. We do know that these players are able to, cleanse their palate of salt a little bit. You have to do that if you're going to be playing on the pro ladder. You're going to have to go through a lot of tough losses to get those wins. Game King has the opportunity to do that, but like you said, there is the situation where Henselt is probably, in JJ's lineup, maybe the least equipped to completely shut down Erica's Queen. JJ's got that win with Henselt, so now he's got his own Erica's Queen, which he has teched for the mirror specifically. And here comes the mirror exactly.
The mirror, here we go.
As if those ears were burning.
Game King is like, let's get this over with. If I can get a win with this, I stand a very big chance at taking this back. Like this, these games are the most important. As we stated numerous times, Super JJ has a lineup completely geared towards demolishing this archetype. And we see one of the counters right there in his hand, the Jade figurine right there, which is called Artifact Compression. And he also has Gels, which can fish for, it will 100% get muzzle because he has his other 2 goals in hand as well, which is very key. So we see 2 immediate answers to Neckers in hand. And we do see Summoning Circle in Game King's hand though, which is a very, very key card as it can be played after the muzzle. As muzzle doesn't, you don't play any, well, yeah, because you play Gels, so it doesn't count gold cards, right? So that's very important as we see the open pass from Super JJ. Yeah. And what can you, I mean, you can, what do you do here if you're Game King? What do you drop?
Yeah, you just want to get, the Foretail is going to go to the graveyard anyway, and that's fine because, well, actually, sorry. Oh, no, Game King is running Phoenix. Just have, we have 2 Erica's Queens listed right next to each other. They do look they're very similar, but Game King is running Phoenix, Royal Decree, Brewis Ritual, and Wispus Tribute. JJ also with Brewis and Wispus, but Gels and Muzzle here. Now, JJ has the opportunity to, there he's got the Mandrake, another tech piece. So he has 3 Neckers destroyed. Summoning Circle may make the difference, however, as that gives Game King access to a 4th, but I don't think he's able to actually procure that. He does have, nope, there's no Shadow, so can Game King actually get 4 Neckers out in this round? If he can't, then it's going to be pretty tough for him. Game King,
we see 1 Necker in hand. We see the Marching Orders, which will get Shadow. Or another Necker, as he has triple Slizzard in hand, and those are the only 3 units that are weaker than 4, as he's going to go for that right now. This will pull either Shadow or a Necker itself. Down goes the Necker. And we do see, like I said, 3 answers. Not 1, not 2, but 3. And
JJ
we're going to see JJ immediately answer that. Expect a Summoning Circle here. Expect a Summoning Circle here from Game King because even though his Necker got stolen, he can Summoning Circle it again, and because the last unit played, he's making sure. Which is very important. It may be a very straightforward play, but you can never be too sure, as this Summoning Circle will spawn another Necker, and that is the second one. And in his hand, I only see a 3rd option, as Alpha's Double Cross will pull a Necker Warrior, and the Tribute will not be enough, as we see the Artifact Compression there. And he has the 3rd Necker in hand.
JJ with that lockdown game. Honestly, like Game King's just like, JJ needs to draw the answers. JJ drew the answers. He already had the answers, really. Wispus could have taken care of it, but he also drew the Mandrake specifically. So, although I do believe Wispus does not actually have a draw right now because Monster Nest is in JJ's hand, but that's kind of beside the point. JJ's lockdown game is supreme. 3 Neckers down, 3 Neckers dealt with. Stolen, compressed, and Mandraked. Deleted. There are none left.
Exactly.
Necker Warriors really have no strong play. Vrans are eating for no true end game. Slizzards are not looking good in this round right now. Game King doesn't even have the strength to really push.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, this is a very difficult position for him. If he had 1 more Necker in hand, JJ would have actually ran out of answers for them. So he is forced to pass here. Going to round 3, 1 card down. You can see the frustration in Game King's face, as JJ just brought all the answers for that and is really shutting him down here. Going into a mirror, into a very long round 3 in a mirror match in which you have 1 card over your opponent and you only have 1 Necker left. It's not looking too great for him, but this is why we were stating that this matchup was a disadvantage. He does get the Shadow, so he has a Necker, and we do not see an answer from JJ, so he's going to be able to capitalize on that. But he's 1 card down over his opponent, even though we do know that Game King is also running Mandrake himself, so he can utilize the Wispus Tribute to search for it and deny the opposing Necker if he needs to.
But at this point, I mean, he'll be able to. It's interesting. The Game King is also running just a little bit. I mean, the Mandrake has a lot of uses, of course, in lots of different matchups. JJ just having that extra, like, couple of layers of tech here in the mirror. But JJ's targeting is paying off this time in Gwent Open. Gwent Open number 1, he targeted Mill, didn't run into it. Gwent Open number 2, he targeted Weather, and it didn't go so well for him. It ended up that he just had a bunch of low value bronzes because he didn't run into a lot of Weather on his way up. This time he targeted Consume, and he's running into Consume, and he's getting his target here. But Game King at least is able to. He is able to start the strategy, but JJ is running the same strategy. He has extra cards as well. The Mandrake on Wisp's Tribute is available for Game King, but with JJ with the marching orders, should be able to get his strategy going as well. Especially if he's able to maybe consume one of the Neckers now. He could have just res it with Brewis, I suppose. Like, there's options here for JJ.
Down goes the Van Warrior, chopping down on the Necker Warrior. Now, one of the problems Game King is facing here is that Super JJ does have one Necker in the graveyard.
Oh, he does already have it.
Even if he does banish it with Mandrake, he will be able to Slizzard the other one regardless. So that's like one of the differences here going in favor of Game King. That JJ has already utilized his Necker counter in Mandrake, while Game King has his own. He definitely has the makings. He has all the tools to be able to get his engine going, but being one card down is definitely very, very devastating, especially considering both players have the same, pretty much a very similar hand. As the thing here is,
Brewis is not looking good, right? There's no Neckers in the graveyard for Game King. Like,
well, he can start eating them. He can start eating them and send 2, and then just because he has 2 Ran Warriors, and Slizzards can be more Necker Warriors, Forktail. So he has all the tools really to set up that Brewis and potentially finish off with a very strong Arrakis Queen. But being one card down, as we see right now, both players are looking at 7 cards each. But JJ does have an 11-point lead, so unless Game King is able to change it up here, because of these the proactive nature of these 2 decks. It's not like they are going to interact much more with each other, but I think it's all going to come down to the timing of that Mandrake, and it seems like it's going to happen now.
Yeah, but JJ is protected from this. JJ has like, because of that muzzle, because of that extra tech. Oh, he's just going to go ahead and just hit the Van Warrior instead.
Okay, so I like this approach. He wants to destroy the Consume engine, not the win condition. And this makes a lot of sense, because if you, in a long round, Random Warrior is going to represent a lot of value every time it goes to eat, and it chomps down on whatever is in front of it. It will buff up every single Necker in the deck. So if you can stop that early on, that's a very solid use. I mean, if you weren't going to go for that regardless, you probably, I like this. I like this approach. I think if Game King stands a chance in this mirror, is through that kind of play.
Vran denied the all-you-can-eat buffet. I mean, I'm trying to think of how JJ can really kind of secure it. There isn't a Vran in the graveyard, I believe, for Slizzard. I mean, the Forktail does represent 2 Consume procs. The Arrakis Queen does represent another 3, as the Meatball will be coming down at some point here. There's the Necker Warrior from Alzur's Double Cross. The usual target, this is the highest strength unit in the deck.
Kind of really debating here. I think we're definitely going to see a Slizzard being dropped down, or perhaps because the thing is you want to get those base copies of Neckers out as early as possible, but you also want to get out the Vran Warrior as early as possible as well, as because of its ongoing effect. The earlier you play it, the more times it will eat. So he's hovering over his graveyard, but I definitely expect the Slizzard to go down here to target the Necker Warrior and get that going. These Lizards are going to be very, very strong, and he's going to be able to implement a strategy, like I said, like despite the fact that JJ was able to counter him in the earlier rounds. Game King does still have a chance potentially here. He has to keep on pushing.
It's all because of Summoning Circle. I was really, and I said before these games get started, that Game King will live or die by the ability to draw Summoning Circle and get that extra Necker so he can actually, even though he'll be denied up to 3 times, that 4th one can be the charm. So the Summoning Circle was a huge, huge inclusion and a huge draw, obviously, for Game King in round 1.
As you see right there, for newer players, Summoning Circle spawns a copy of the last bronze or silver, does not include gold, unit onto the board, basically a copy of the last unit played. So it was a very nice way to counter Muzzle, as Muzzle is a special card, so it doesn't count as a unit, and it just basically copied the Necker that Game King played the turn prior. As we see another We see Forktail go down there for Super JJ, putting him a total of 4 points ahead. Now things are starting to get rather interesting here because both players, the strength gap is closing, and it's closing in. Game King is getting a little bit closer to be able to overcome JJ in that sense, but we see a lot of power as JJ has yet to play his own Wispus Tribute, which is going to represent a Monster's Nest most likely. And he can go for several. He can probably go for the Barbergazi play to cycle one of the Neckers and trigger another Consume, or he could even go for the Ghoul as well.
You could go for the Ghoul. I mean, the 9-strength units and the 9-strength Necker Warriors in the graveyard make for a pretty sizable Ghoul.
16 points, right?
16-point Ghoul, yeah. And that extra instance of here comes Brewis. So he already has the Neckers in the graveyard. So now all of these Neckers, they're all ticking. They're all pieces of the engine here. 3 procs at the very, very least from Erica's Queen. Slizzard can grab a Forktail as well for another 2. Brewis with Monster Nest, and then finally the Marching Orders, I believe, pulls JJ's final Slizzard, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is, or else he would have taken the Grand Warrior a while ago. So, there's still lots of stuff that JJ can do, and Game King is still trying to do what he can. He needs to get Neckers in his graveyard so he can actually play Brewis, because he's missing the engine growing on his side of the board here. But he does want to take his time and cycle when he can, get the most value out of it. But it's tough. Game King is really fighting against this right now.
Now, the key difference between these two players, even though we're looking at a mirror match here, is that Game King has 2 ongoing Grand Warriors that have not been answered, while JJ has none, because the Mandrake did banish that one, so he cannot Slizzard into another one. That's the longer song the round lasts, the more important that is. As we're going to see a Slizzard onto the Fork, they're going to chomp that on the Slizzard that brought it back. Yeah. And the other Necker is starting the cycling game. Game King is really thinking about the numbers here. And a Raucous Queen goes down for Super JJ. I expect the Raucous Queen to be more of a, like the finisher for JJ, for Game King instead. But look at that swing though. Yeah. But that's one of the strongest plays. And Game King still has his own, so This is very interesting. Like 2 ongoing Grand Warriors, it's gonna lead to bigger Neckers on Game King's side. But as we see 3 Neckers on JJ's board, while Game King only has 1. Even though the Brewis will change that.
Yeah, but he only has 1 in the graveyard. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Game King only has 1 in the graveyard right now. He does have 2 at this point, so Bruce might likely be the play here. JJ already dropping the big meatball there, getting the cycle on 2 of those Neckers as well as grabbing that Forktail. 37 points, no Scorch to fear at this point. So JJ's just, he's in a good position. He's in a favorable position at this point. Up a card in the mirror.
Don't quote me on that. I mean, he may only have 1. No, I think he has 2. I think he has 2. I may be wrong here.
Well, he did play the Forktail. Oh, he does only have 1. He does only have 1.
Because he could zoom this Necker with the Forktail now, and he's delayed the. He's counted because he hasn't played 3 Necker Warriors, which is very important. I believe he's only been able to play 2. So you have to make sure when you take this approach that you're not going to feign yourself out of Neckers at the same time as the Forktail goes down, chomps down on the Neckers again. And this is definitely getting rough, especially considering that because of the later use of the Necker Warriors by Game King, we'll see just how beefy the Neckers are. It's very difficult to keep track of because we don't have we can't look at the decks and such, so it's difficult to say exactly how strong the Neckers are. But we see a tremendous lead for JJ as of right now.
It's just like you are basically looking at 2 different board states. One board state is a Consume player that has been shut down, and one board state is from a Consume player that has not been shut down. And every time a Necker is eaten, it is replaced. Super JJ was able to get all of his Necker Warriors on there, which is an extra 6 copies of the Neckers. So it's just exactly what the exact position that JJ wants to be in, and Game King is just suffering from the tech. And this is the Consume targeting that JJ went into this game specifically to do. There are the last 2 there for Game King.
Still not enough to catch up to him, though.
It's just, he's not even catching up. The Slizzard won't be enough here. Wispus is going to be coming down to grab that Monster Nest. Barbergazi will be able to cycle one last time. Or no, he's just going to go ahead and just get that Consume effect just to proc the boost on the Neckers. And ultimately, even though Game King was able to get Neckers up to 18 points, it's still not going to be enough.
He has to go with a Forktail here and just go for the most powerful play. It really depends on how many Neckers are left in the deck. which is something that's very difficult to keep track of, especially if you're casting the match on top of that.
Yeah, it's a mirror. On
But
top of it
let's
being
be
a mirror.
surprised. Let's just shock me, show me. Yeah, he's really thinking here. Like he's definitely keeping track, but you can see in his face that he's not too happy about it. So it seems like because if he had more, like if he was able to E2 Neckers here and cycle another one, but the way this is looking, that's not even gonna happen here, as this Forktail will buff every single Necker twice.
Yeah.
No, he's not gonna. He can't. He didn't have enough. Like he didn't play enough Necker Warriors here. This is looking rough. This is his last play, and if he's not able to overcome this strength, then that's all she wrote. He has overcome the strength, and that Brand Warrior will trick. Wait, that Brand Warrior will trick. What is that last card?
Well, yeah, with 3 on the board, it's just...
Yeah, okay, the Forktail, this is...
It's just nasty. 200 plus.
Oh my God, 200 points.
Oh man, Consume at its greatest.
Absolutely denied here. JJ with a very dominant victory, and just goes to show how efficient his tech is.
You know, GameKing getting up to 165 points, even in the shutdown version there, but the mirror just being able to execute. It just seemed like a non-stop parade, just a clown car. Necker's just coming out every single play that JJ was able to execute, completely cleaned his deck out of Necker's there. Basically, strategy executed at 100%. He just had the one speed bump. The Vran getting destroyed by the Mandrake just wasn't enough by a long shot. 206 points final score for JJ, which is a pretty high score in any game, but in a tournament, allowing that to get that high. Proactive deck versus proactive deck. Pretty nasty, but JJ able to get 2-0 up here on GameKing. One more chance for GameKing. Well, I should say 3 more chances if he wins. JJ just one win away from punching his ticket to the finals here, and he's got to do it with Ethna, which is, you know, Scoia'tael, you might say it's pretty good these days.
Yeah, it's looking rough for GameKing, as Ethne is, in my opinion, the most efficient deck in the matchup, as it's very well teched. It has the likes of Jade Figurine, it has Ethne to recycle the artifact compression, and a Sangram Outlaw to search for it, alongside other options as well. It's just a very, very, very well geared deck, and it's gonna be, unless he doesn't draw set answers, it's gonna be very difficult for GameKing to overcome that matchup. The question is, will GameKing just jump into it directly with the Arrakis Queen, or will we try to get more wins here before that happens, as we see him going with the Mir again? I like this approach. You know, you're already down 2-0. At this point, you just want to get as many wins as possible and just try to lead up to that last match and see if you can take it right there, as it is Nilfgaard versus Scoia'tael, and JJ is looking at a very solid hand, even though that Eglaze is pretty dead in this matchup, as Summoning Circle is a doomed special card, which means that once it's played, it's actually banished from the game. It doesn't go to the graveyard. So Eglaze, which is a gold that steals opposing special cards from the graveyard, will only represent 9 value, and we see the mulligan there because of that.
JJ's got a really interesting Dwarf Elf hybrid version of Scoia'tael that utilizes Ethna to get the double artifact compression or double Commander's Horn. Either whatever one gets you the win. I mean, they're both very strong cards to play twice with Ethna, as you are able to replay one of your own special cards. And he does have the 2 Crown Princes in Hattori and Polly Dahlberg, which are 2 devastatingly strong Scoia'tael cards. Cards that attract the ire of many a ladder player, as on the ladder you can't ban Scoia'tael. In tournaments you can. GameKing decided to not do that. And he's running Dragoons and Farseers as well. So long game boost, a little bit of engine in the tempo deck that Scoia'tael is known to run here. We're going to see just kind of how that gets to play out, because Super JJ, we got to see him play it in the quarterfinals a couple times. He played it once against Coleman in a situation where he wasn't able to get the engine going, and then the next time he played against Coleman forfeited basically a minute into that match. So actually seeing JJ fully execute his strategy of Scoia'tael will be a first for this tournament, I would say.
It just goes to show that ladder in tournaments is not the same environment, and that deck is called a greedy deck for a reason. Now, I want to go into some of the plays here being done by Game King, as that leading Cantarella is to revert the coin flip. I like that War Dancer drop from JJ. It denies the open pass, as Game King was forced to go first, and a viable option with Nilfgaard Spies is just open pass on the opponent and go for a long round 2 in which you try to preserve that card advantage over the opponent. But JJ denied that with the War Dancer by establishing 3 points on the board and forcing him to play. And as we saw, Game King right there go with the Cantarella to kind of like revert that flip in his favor. And now the engine starts going. He also picked up an Enforcer instead of a Imperial Brigade because especially in this particular matchup, it's more important to be able to take away the points from the opponent than to build them up yourselves, especially when you know JJ is running Artifact Compression, which is a very solid answer for Imperial Brigade. So if you every single time you have the chance to choose between, or the option to choose between Imperial Enforcer or Brigade, you should always go for the Enforcer first, in my opinion. As very solid lead there by JJ. Look at that 46-point mark, and those double Dragoons as well. Every single turn that passes, those Dragoons will be buffing up JJ's hand, and if one of those buffs go into Hattori, his resurrection options will increment, actually.
It's true, yeah. Hattori can only res the stuff that's at his strength level, but since Scoia'tael does have that hand buff aspect to the faction, Hattori does get stronger with each buff in hand. Game King looking to try to shut down JJ's engine of, it's kind of like a carryover engine. It's putting points into cards in future rounds. So being able to shut down the Dragoons now will pay off later, and he'll be able to easily do that by playing Spies, and his Enforcer will get the job done. This Dragoon will be going down, and then he'll be trying to gun down the other Dragoon. JJ does have options of perhaps rolling something like Hawker Healer off Elven Scout to protect the Dragoons. I thought that he might consider doing that, but instead just playing Barkley right now. Playing Barkley when you have Poly in hand is perfect. You don't have the risk of pulling one of your win conditions out in a dead state, which is you know, you always, whenever you're playing against a Scoia'tael player on the ladder, you kind of hope it's always going to happen. But being able to hold Poly in hand is kind of the ideal situation for Scoia'tael.
Knocking down one of the Overhead Dragoons right there with the Imperial Enforcer. Those have to be his prime targets here, as every turn that passes, they will give JJ more and more value. At this point, Game King is in a rather decent position, as we've mentioned prior that the Spy Nilfgaard archetype does have a bit of a slow start, but that snowballing potential is very, very powerful. But we see the Artifact Compression, a tech choice for the Consume matchup, also being very valuable here, as he's able to deny one of the engines from Game King and could potentially even recycle it with Ethne if it comes down to that, which is why Enforcers are going to be putting in so much more work than the Imperial Brigades in this particular game. As the second Enforcer goes down, knocks out the Overhead Dragoon, and it's probably going to hit some other emissary to potentially continue that chain, as he does still have 2 Vicar of Automatics in his deck, or I believe only no. He only has. Does he have 2 or 3?
He does have 2.
Yeah, so he only has 1 left. So never mind. He can actually opt to hit something like. Oh no, he's gonna go for the emissary here. Okay, it's not clear. I mean, it's a debatable choice. Like you can argue several things. Don't hit the Barkley because he could potentially decoy it. You could proc one of those hits for the Skirmisher. There we go. And that's a solid Enforcer. I think those were the best possible targets here.
JJ's going to just take this opportunity to pass and force Game King to go down another card here. He was able to shut down. The Brigade there, get a sizable lead, but ultimately, you know, it might have partially, like, the thing about teching for Consume, especially from Scoia'tael's standpoint with Ethna, is that these cards are going to be good anyway. Artifact Compression is a great card to play twice, and Commander's Horn is also a great card to play twice. I said it at the top of the matchup here.
Depending on the matchup.
Unlike when JJ was targeting Mill in Gwent Open number 1 and targeting Weather in Gwent Open number 2, when you target stuff like Consume in this situation, you put cards that may be slightly suboptimal if you're just looking for like a hard kind of meta sort of. I won't use the term net deck because these guys are the deck builders, of course, but you know, you look at very like staple decks, and but you slot in some extra stuff that's still really good in a lot of different matchups. You know, even stuff like Mandrake, anything that gets boosted. You know, you're going up against Emir, you're going to have lots of boosted targets and stuff like the Emperor Brigade. There's lots of stuff that you can find there, and then ultimately when you run into Consume, you've got all the answers. So JJ just with a pretty good strategy here. Hanachan also approached this in the same way, but unfortunately he went into Atsukov, who wasn't even running Consume. So it hurt him a little bit here. JJ does not look hurting at all in this matchup.
He does not. He's looking. I mean, he does have a decent hand, but Nilfgaard Spies still has several engines left and a very powerful late game with not one, not two, but not three, but 4 golds. I love the Kahir Vilgefort synergy. This gold lineup, being brought by Asikov as well, as we're gonna see an Azir lead. I wonder if he's gonna deny the skirmisher. Yep, he is gonna deny the skirmisher for being res from Paulie. And because he's not facing Brug or Hug and Ethne instead, he can also return Barclay Els as well, so it cannot be resurrected by Hattori. I like this. I like this offensive Azir. And looking at JJ's hand, it's an excellent Azir, as it has denied not one, but 2 very powerful cards. And now Game King can actually push really deep this round. And if he pushes deep enough, he could put JJ in a very bad spot here. He's denied his 2 most powerful cards in hand are completely weakened as of now.
It's interesting. Like he did take power away from these cards, but these cards are still they're still good. Just even just rezzing a skirmisher at 9 is already like a pretty fair card to play as a silver card. I think what's happened with Scoia'tael over the course of this meta is that people have found more and more efficient ways to just blast the points out with these cards. Paulie is one of the strongest cards in the game. Now, Game King did basically put Paulie from an insane state to a more reasonable state, but Paulie is still going to be good.
No, but I'm talking about this round. In this round,
of course,
Hattori and Paulie are completely dead. He has no targets in the graveyard, as we see a War Dancer and double overhead Dragoon. The Elven Scouts have not been played, and there are no more skirmishers. So right now, we're only talking about emissaries potentially. So that Azir, if Game King decides to push in this round, that Azir is very, very strong, as if he pushes, like I said, deep enough, those 2 silvers will not represent any sort of value. I mean, 4, right? But in today's state of Gwent, that is just pretty pathetic. As I like this approach. I think Game King just needs to push as deep as he can, and he could potentially be working for a 2-0 here.
It's actually funny if the Elven Scout rolls anything that can buff in hand and it hits Hattori, like I'm thinking of the Hawker support specifically, he could maybe rest the Dragoon. So at least makes Hattori a little bit more a more playable state. But of course, the Elven Scout does create a bronze card outside of your deck from Scoia'tael. So I mean, you can't really ever depend on it to give you what you need. I mean, of course, on the ladder when you're playing against it, it seems like it always gives the opponent what he needs. But that's just maybe confirmation bias. But being able to get the value, the option to push here for Game King, he could do it. He could do it. He does have Iris. He does have ways of destroying Iris. He does have K here. Emir's already in the graveyard. He has an Enforcer, which he could get a fair amount of value out of as well, potentially.
One of the things here is that JJ is very well aware of the fact that Game King loves to run Iris, and he also has access to the list anyway, so he knows Iris is a thing. He is probably preserving that Ethne not to take down one of the brigades, but actually to use it on Iris. Because Game King does require 2 Impair Enforcers to immediately proc Iris, and 2 out of the 3 are already in the graveyard.
Could JJ actually consider rezzing Iris with Hattori and then killing it with a skirmisher as well on his side?
He can res Iris. It's a neutral card.
Of course, of course.
No, that did. I don't know if that was always the case, but you cannot do that. That would be pretty nutty.
Hattori's limitation sometimes isn't seen very often because, of course, Hattori is usually happy to res Scoia'tael units in the first place.
I mean, they're very good units. Like that Barclay Russ. Oh my God. That's so
Barclay is usually Hattori's first target, first and only target. Osir, of course, taking that away here.
I like this Kahir. Kahir into Emir. Gonna res Emir. Gonna play Vilgefort. Oh, this is insane tempo.
Interesting choice.
Unfortunately, he does not have the best targets to bounce back. Like, what will he bounce back? Well, he has to hit something here first.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the Enforcer. I guess
the Enforcer is really. I mean, the Enforcer, since it's been changed.
I like this. Yeah,
its on-play effect is so much stronger now. It's like it's basically got all the points kind of front-loaded into it. So replaying the Enforcer means that he's going to get another 4 pings off of it. So, it's not ideal, but it is still great.
Yep. We may, like, the thing is, Game King is very well aware. Oh, he managed to get the Macam Power Technician, which does represent 14 points, as there are units on both the melee, the range, and the siege row for Game King. It's not enough to put JJ at, the amount of strength that Game King is, but I think Game King really should try to push here, because especially looking at that hand, if he just keeps on pushing and goes for the 2-0 here, those last 2 silvers are very, very weak. He also has to be careful and not kill units. Like, just deal damage, but don't eliminate units that can be rezzed by Hattori or Paulie. If he avoids that, like that Elven Scouts, he knows very well what he's doing.
Yeah,
he knows very well.
The Neophyte is safe. The Neophyte is the last thing that Hattori is going to be able to res. Just too strong.
Don't hit the Skirmisher. It is currently the biggest Meno target, so there's no need to hit it. As you could hit anything else, like the other Skirmisher. You can even hit the Brigade. You can hit the Power Ignition. You can just bop anything. Just don't kill anything. Just shoot him in the legs.
But as soon as he kills the Skirmisher, then Paulie can res it.
Exactly.
So that's scary as well. Is it possible that he uses Meno on the Brigade instead?
I would, honestly. You miss on 2 points, but you also deny that. Oh boy, here we go.
Or use Meno on Iris, I guess, is the... I
think you play Iris now. You don't hit her, because you would take her down. He wants to take her down with Meno here, but the thing is, we're definitely gonna see JJ respond with FNA into artifact compression to convert Iris, but that's gonna be a 4 tempo play for him, which won't be enough for him to catch up. Which means this Meno onto the Imperial Brigade. Okay, so let's see here. He's going to definitely go for
this is going to be the artifact compression. There it is.
He's 2 points behind. This Meno represents a total of 15 points. If he plays Meno onto the Brigade now, he wins. If he plays Meno onto the Brigade now, he 2-0s.
Just double checking.
Meno onto Imperial Brigade is a 2-0 for Game King.
Is that...
Boy, take it.
You're... Hattori can bring back the War Dancer at least. I mean, there is that.
No, it's too big. It's Hattori can be. Okay, no, wait. That's 8, 12. Yeah, he still wins. He still wins because it puts him at 70. While if he Menos now, it's a 2-0 for Game King here. Onto the Brigade. Onto the Brigade. Attaboy. Attaboy. There you go. And that's a 2-0 for Game King. Nicely done. Nicely done. Not hitting the stronger Skirmisher. We see the forfeit, and he takes it. 2-1. Moving on to the next game. Nice.
Game King getting a little bit of money here. I mean, they're both playing for the ticket, right? They're both playing for the ticket. Game King is going to get a win here with Emir. Ethna, 2 more shots here with Ethna. I mean, he didn't get the Commander's Horn. That was huge. Asira was a fantastic counterplay to deny the strength of Hattori and Paulie, which are, when you deny a Scoia'tael player's graveyard and you're able to push like that, there's really nothing you can do right now. It's just the cards go from being insane. And like I said, it went from insane to reasonable, but Game King always had the 2-0 in his sights, and that went from reasonable to just not enough to actually take the game there. 2 cards up, too.
Yep, he's gonna have to go with Kim Brand here. He wants to get as many wins as possible, and that is gonna all come down to that. I mean, it's obviously the advantage is in Super JJ's favor by a long shot, but this is a card game. He could not draw into enough answers, while Game King could draw into a good hand. So nothing is set on stone here, and we have seen Raphael overcome very difficult matchups in the past. A good example is I believe the first Gwent Slam, in which he faced our good buddy and fellow caster Impetuous Panda in the quarterfinals, and he was able to defeat a mill deck with a Scoia'tael thin list. So I still don't fully understand how he did it, but he did it. So. Don't count him out just yet. Here we go.
He did it with a monsters thin list as well, if I recall correctly.
He reverse sweep with that.
Yeah, he just played his deck backwards essentially, and he just was able to do it there. So.
Yep. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is Skellige versus Scoia'tael. We see the War Dancer lead again to get that additional tempo for JJ. And a very solid looking hand for Game King. He has the Power Captain to search for the other light longship, 1 Corsair in hand in case one of those longships goes down, double Berserker Marauder, a Restore. This is looking to be a good match. I don't know exactly how this matchup goes, to be honest. Especially because Super JJ's Dwarf list is not the standard Dwarf deck you're used to seeing. because it is running triple overhead Dragoon and double Farseer to capitalize on those Dragoons, but he's not been able to draw them in his opening hands in these two games.
No Farseers. We haven't seen, like, we basically haven't seen the Farseers execute at all in this series, even though this is one of the lists where JJ is actually not running 3 ofs. Necessarily. He only has 2 Farseers and, of course, the single War Dancer, which does prevent the open pass here, but he can't quite access those Farseers. Going to take that ship, deny engine. That is what Muzzle still is very, very good at doing, is just basically denying engine, denying reses, making Corsairs a little more dead here. The Brand deck in this situation is the decks are very similar in that the Brand deck's very much like playing points. Like, you play as many points, you develop a little bit of engine in the warships. But other than that, your Berserker Marauders, your Raging Berserkers, they just end up being like big point plays and just doing the best you can just to push deep into a round 1 with just more points than your opponent. It sounds very basic, obviously. That's kind of the heart and soul of Gwent, but the dwarf side of Scoia'tael and this version of Brand, Serie Nova version, is they are very similarly executed. JJ's deck is a little bit different though from what you might just consider a traditional dwarf deck.
Yep. Important thing to note here is that if Genki had gone with a Raucous Queen here, he actually would have stood a very nice chance, as JJ only drew Muzzle and no Ascengrim, no Artifact Compression, and thus he could not be able to recycle that with Ethne. So this could have been a very solid situation for him to get that win. So this is what I want to fall back on. Like, it's not over, like that matchable is potentially winnable, but it is going to come down to draws and decisions and such. Now this Muzzle is very, very strong, not only because it takes away the engine and utilizes it for JJ himself, but also it denies one of the Corsairs from obtaining any sort of value unless this second launch hit goes down, which JJ will not focus on unless he doesn't realize that his opponent's running 2 Corsairs. Like, that's a very big deal. Like, having 1 dead Corsair can make his draws a little bit awkward in the late game, and that Muzzle was definitely very, very strong.
Yeah, I mean, Muzzle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think JJ is the only player to bring Muzzle. Muzzle was brought by almost everybody in previous tournaments.
He's setting up that Igni.
Yeah, he's setting up nicely. He's going to grab that Summoning Circle. It's a pretty...
It's beautiful. That spy placement is so key. That ship will hit it at the end of the turn, dropping it down to 12, and JJ instantly recognizes that.
He's like, all right, go for it.
I'm out of here.
59 to 17 is a pretty good pass in the first place, even when you're down a card in this situation, but that Igni does represent a pretty huge swing right there, 29 points to get things started. Game King will have to play 2 cards, however, but he's happy to do so.
Yeah, I mean, if you take control of round 1, that's very nice. Even though you go down 1 card and you've already... The problem is there's no way JJ can... Because if he won this round only with Geralt Igni, Game King could also follow up the next round with a Summoning Circle to copy Uldric. But because he has to play another card on top of that, that will be the last card played, which means that Summoning Circle will not be able to be utilized in that manner. But he definitely has to take this round at this point, and that has to be... The Igni has to go down now. Like, the Igni has to happen now, because otherwise the ship will hit Uldric again, and it will disalign, Engrish.
Yeah.
As this ship is going to hit Igni right there, and I think we can expect perhaps a... What play can do it here? The Berserker Marauder does it, right? Yeah, the Berserker Marauder is a total of 13 points because it does absorb the hit from the ship. So you could just drop the Raging Berserker next to the ship. It can take the hit, and it will enable Game King to win this round by 1
12
point.
points, I believe.
No, 13 because it absorbs the hit from the ship for free as it turns from 12.
Oh, you're talking about the Raging Berserker.
Yeah, the Raging Berserker
Marauder. My mistake.
Oh yeah. I did say Berserker Marauder first. They're both Berserker. They're both crazy.
They're just so angry. They're just a bunch of angry men there in Skellige.
This will win it by 1 point. Yeah. This will do it by 1 point. So this is definitely the play to go for here. By 2 points, math.
Just enough.
Yeah, by 2 points. Because he absorbs a hit, so it's +2, not +1.
I think JJ is happy with the 2-card play right there. I mean, he knew that there was potential. I mean, the players know the deck list at this point. I mean, this is common stuff, but in case you aren't aware as far as the tournament is concerned, is that after the quarterfinals are all done, the players have access to the deck list. They are able to kind of play in that strategy. It saves the players some time. They don't have to go back and rewatch the streams. It does give them a little bit of extra information depending on what was played in the quarterfinals, but ultimately it just becomes, the strategy is really in full execution for the semis and the finals.
The question is, will Game King opt to push here, or will he go for the open pass? I think we can definitely expect Because one of the things to take into consideration here is one of the reasons why you don't want to face Squaretel in a very long round nowadays is because of Ithling plus double Tremors. Ithling plus Stamina Tremors is a very powerful combo that becomes even stronger and stronger the longer the round goes and the more units you develop yourself. As it is an AoE effect, as we can see right there. It plays a bronze spell, boon, or hazard, and Stamina for Tremors is a spell that deals 1 damage to all the opposing units, and if you eliminate one of those units, then you spawn a 6 strength lesser guardian on top of that. But we're going to see a Corsair onto the light longship here, and indeed Game King is going to push, and because he doesn't fear that long round as much because of the lack of that gold card in JJ's lineup, which he has sacrificed for the sake of being able to counter consume.
JJ's got a lot of mysterious cards in his hand. We don't know what those Elven Scouts are going to represent. And of course, he does have Commander's Horn, so we will be able to see a double Commander's Horn here. So JJ is, with his card up, he does have the potential, and as this round gets longer and longer, a higher potential of just pushing ahead of Game King. So Game King needs to be very cognizant about how many units JJ is able to place on the board. Elven Scout is each of those agitators and all the scouts each represent 2 bodies, so it'll be very easy for JJ to get to that point. Have a good Commander's Horn row, and then potentially Ethna for another one just to get the lead that he needs, because once you're up in cards, letting your opponent, if you can get to the point where your opponent can't really get ahead of you, you should always be able to close that out with that extra card. And when your extra card is Polly or Hattori, it's huge.
And this is a different scenario from the last matchup, though, and that's why we see a pass here.
Yeah.
You don't want that for Head Dragoon to get more value, as every single token is going to buff the unit on the opposing hand for free. And in this case, JJ did have very solid targets for both Polly and Hattori and Barclay Els. And the buffed up Dwarven Skirmisher. That Dwarven Skirmisher, just so you have an idea, that 12 strength Dwarven Skirmisher will represent a 21 point swing when res by Polly, as it will deal 3 damage and is strengthening itself by 3, so it's going to be 15, dealing 3 damage, 18 plus 3 from Polly, which is a very solid strength mark to hit for a silver card.
Now Game King will have last play here, but is Game King going to be able to draw?
Ooh,
well, Coral's a good draw. Coral's a good draw.
That's very nice.
Sirinova also.
He needs Sirinova, though.
Sirinova is going to that's
Corsair.
the difference maker, the true difference maker.
He can potentially restore into the light longship, because he kind of does need that engine to get the value out of the Berserker Marauders. But no, Sirinova is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
And he needs to. It's also important to note, though, that JJ also has a relatively dead gold in his hand in Aeglaze, as Aeglaze could potentially copy Restore, but Restore is limited to Skellige units. So
well, he does have the light longship in his graveyard, so there is that. So it's like in the one situation, muzzle really pays off here for Aeglaze in this specific situation, which is you won't see it all the time. So Restore was just played here on the Pirate Captain.
I don't know what I was saying. This is a much better target. I forgot the fact that by replacing the Corsair and by utilizing the other one in the other round, like that's why he did it. He got it out of the way, and thus ended up getting value out of the 2 Corsairs, despite that muzzle really disrupting his game at the beginning. So very solid play by Game King. Knowing that he can damage this old geared if he wants to, because he's not vulnerable to Stamina Tremors, as his opponent is not running Ithling, and at this stage of the tournament, all players have knowledge of the deck list, and this is a very, very strong restore. The thing is, Aeglaze can't actually do the same, as I missed the fact that muzzle, there we go.
Here it is right here. He just said thanks. He just
he's going to put it next to the, oh my god, it's going to go next to the Macam.
Oh, right, the Mahakam's going to get boosted? Oh, this is an insane engine that JJ is able to create here.
Look at the smirk.
Little smile on his face here, little sip, get a drink right there, my friend.
Oh boy.
Such a good engine setup here. A very nice cross-faction engine. You don't see this in every game right here. This is brutal. It's got a nice good look at that.
He's very happy.
I mean,
I expect somebody circle here though, because you can copy the ship and have double ship going on here, as that was the last unit play. So somebody circle makes the most sense to me, as I think that's the most value he's going to get out of it in this particular matchup. So
the Elven Scout rolling into the Mahakam Marauder as well is also a nice extra little bit here.
But it just goes to show you was thinking that far up ahead. Like he knew very well what he needed to choose there. So Create does offer you random generated options, but you have to adapt to them and decide which one is the best. And JJ definitely adapted really well here. The problem is, because of he's forced to play the the Summoning Circle now, because it's a card that is very limited to when you can play regarding what you want to get. He has knocked out Ogier, so he's lost 2 buffs from the Berserker Marauder. One from the damage unit, and another one from the fact that Ogier is a cursed unit as well. So that's definitely a bit of a downside, but he does have double ship, which can translate into a lot of points, but that +3 strength engine every turn is just...
Yeah.
I mean, he does have Coral though, right? Like, Coral can definitely shut down that a little bit, but... the
thing about Coral, like right now, basically, Game King does not have Siri Nova right now, and Super JJ has double Commander's Horn. Coral may be better off waiting. I mean, it's interesting that Game King's thinking about it right now, but he knows that there's a potential that there's going to be units that are going to be even more buffed than they currently are. He's not able to really deal with the double Commander's Horn buff to get a little bit of extra value out of that, but shutting down the ship here is necessary. It's necessary.
That Mac and Marauder right there is such a good pick, not only because of the light longship synergy, but also because of the double Commander's Horn that's going to hit down. Like, it's going to get all those buffs, and it was very important to play. Coral there, because normally you want to let that light longship get as big as possible, because light longship gains 2 boosts every turn, but it does damage the unit to its right, so it's taking away points from what it's hitting, meaning that the more it gets buffed, the more impactful that direct removal will be. But in this particular case, it was actually doing the opposite. Every single turn that passed by, that ship generated more value because of the Marauder it was hitting, so he had to play Coral early, and we see Commander's Horn hit and propel JJ to a 68 strength point mark with a total of, I believe, 20. Yeah, we see a 27-point lead for JJ here.
It put Game King in a position where he had to answer it. He had to answer it immediately because he could only deal with one of those targets. Also, like, probably what Game King was looking for is a nice big target that was going to get buffed twice by Commander's Horn. Being able to close things out with Coral definitely helps, especially when you can't draw your Siri Nova. I think not drawing Siri Nova, you can't stand up to the might of the double Commander's Horn Ethna.
You just gotta resort to basically double Marauder there. I expect that Heim to search for Scout, which will pull out the Berserker Marauder, and that's basically his strategy here. He needs to damage as many things as possible. He needs to set up that Beastmaster right next to the light longship so that it goes to the graveyard immediately, so he can follow it up with the Priestess of Freya and resurrect it again as the second Horn hits the board and propels JJ to 95 strength points. Look at this lead, and look at those last 2 silvers in his hand. That is so much power.
I wonder if Siri Nova would have even made the difference. I mean, because Game King was able to act last, it was in the best position that he could have had it. But getting the Berserker Marauder at the double horn on it, and still knowing that Polly and Hattori are going to represent another mountain of points on top of this insane lead that JJ already has.
This is a very rough spot for Game King right here. He's opted to go for either the Raging Berserker or the Beastmaster. The Raging Berserker is going to represent more points in total at the end of the day, as it will absorb one of the hits, and then it will get damaged again, and it will give you a stronger bear, and then it's going to take the ping. And these Marauders are going to be very strong, but this Polly is, like I said, 21 points, and then that Hattori will get Barclay Els as well. So he's going to search for Scowl here.
Yeah.
And Scout will pull the Berserker Marauder.
Yeah.
Yep. He's positioning really well. Like, he's doing all he can, and we'll see just how strong this unit is, because there's a lot of cursed units on the board, and there's quite a few damage as well. That is indeed a thick Marauder, but Hattori into Barclay Els is so strong. It depends on this last Marauder how much points that will be, but he already had quite a significant lead, and that is way too much. I have not seen that. Marauders are thick, but they're not
Siri
that
Nova
thick.
would have made the difference, but Game King didn't have it. JJ definitely had it. Didn't end up having to play against Consume anymore right there. Super JJ is going to be going to Gwent Challenger in April. He is able to beat a very tough opponent in Game King 3-1. He'll be getting 75% of that $3,000 prize pool as well. And we'll be seeing him later today as he'll be playing the winner of Adzikov versus Shaggy, which is going to be coming up right after this match. What a matchup, though. I mean, it paid off for JJ, right? His tech paid off, and his play ultimately paid off as well.
It was an excellent series, and it also didn't really come down to the Arrakis Queen tech as much, because JJ was able to overcome Game King throughout the other matchups and played very efficiently, and we got to see the likes of Ethne in matchups in which, it was not truly intended to face. So I really really a big fan of his performance here, and JJ's looking very strong. He has also overcome his own curse. This is the first time Super JJ defeats, or at least passes through the semifinals, as he always lost in the semifinals in the past, and now we'll make it to the finals and we'll face the winner of Azakov and Shaggy.
The targeting pays off. Super JJ has already got a prize pool of $38.50. Game King's going to go home with a fair $23.50 USD. Paolo Bergia, the birthday boy, is standing by to talk to Super JJ, who is going to be heading to Challenger. Take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you, McBeard. I'm here with Super JJ. Man, you're going to Challenger, first of all. Second of all, you were very calm. You were like super calm, calculated. You saw the misplay by Game King at the beginning, and from that point on, you were kind of going for it. How do you feel?
Yeah, first of all, happy Borja to you.
Oh,
I mean, you're almost 100 now. How does it feel?
Yeah, I'm like a vampire. I think I'm 300 and something like Regis, yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice, Sue. You get close to my stats when I'm playing Skoya. Yeah. No, it feels really good. Game King is a really good player, and yeah, I'm very happy to get into the Challenger. It's very nice here. I mean, I like the atmosphere. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'll take this back. Going to the final, who would you want to rather compete against?
I like both. It's fine, really. I would just want to have a good final series.
All right, congrats in the final and good stuff.